This is lecture number DR029WS03. It is the 29th of the Mega Genius lectures and the third lecture of the Whole Truth series. It was recorded on November 22nd, 2000. The title of this lecture is A Shower of Stardust. It is 26 minutes long. Copyright 2000 by Mega Genius. All rights reserved. This lecture is protected by internationally valid copyright. It may not, in whole or in part, be duplicated, transmitted, or otherwise reproduced without the express permission of Mega Genius. Unauthorized translation, importation, or distribution is a violation of applicable laws. Mega Genius is a United States federally registered trademark and service mark. And now, here is Mega Genius.
Did you ever have a truly magical, almost otherworldly experience that knocked you down and showered you with stardust? Many people have, a time or two during their lives. Maybe you were just shuffling along through life, sweeping up a dead fly, or tightening a lug nut, or wondering why some people hang their toilet paper roll backwards. You know how life is. Then suddenly, it was almost as if a lightning bolt struck you. Perhaps you saw the most remarkable thing that you had never seen before, or felt like the richest person on earth for no reason at all, or felt inexplicably as if you were floating. Did you ever have a telepathic experience, an out-of-body experience, a beyond-death experience, something very beneficial that made you know that you would never be quite the same again? Whatever it was that may have happened to you, it was sudden, unexpected, and quite remarkable. It was difficult to communicate about it to others, and you may not have understood it very well yourself. Yet you remember it to this day. What in the world, or out of this world, happened? What happened was that, for any number of reasons, your truth distortion lens, which is a real thing, suddenly slipped a little sideways in front of your face, and you peeked over its rim. Kabam! Stardust! Ecstasy! It was a magic moment. You saw truth. Because you didn't expect it to happen, your eyes were not already focused on the area of revelation when the lens slipped. The piece of truth you saw probably was not about the fly body, or lug nut, or toilet paper, or whatever your body's eyes happened to be focused on at that moment. When the lens slipped, you just looked without realizing what had happened, and you saw a piece of truth somewhere down the road, a piece that had always been distorted when you were looking through the lens. I can also tell you that the beautiful jewel that you discovered that day was only a smattering of the treasures strewn left and right and heaped high along the road to truth. If the lens slips, it generally does not stay out of position for long. Sometimes the person does not actually realize anything. He knows that something happened, but he doesn't seem to have seen much of anything new. He was just there, maybe trying to figure out what was leaking from a garbage bag, and it was as though an invisible hand suddenly tossed stardust in his face, and he felt ecstatic. Talk about mysteries. Well, in his case the lens slipped, and he took about a 1-second peek. At that instant he was dumbfounded by the wonder that he saw, and shocked and knocked off balance by seeing that it was true. Consequently, to keep his own screwball world from sliding apart in 10 directions at once, he immediately and unconsciously jammed that lens fully back into place before his eyes, and vowed to himself that he had not seen a thing. Don't laugh. It happens all the time. Regardless of whether you discover truth in the proper order or slightly out of order, just seeing one decent-sized piece that is of relatively minimal magnitude in the whole scope of things will often leave you wobbly in the knees. If a magical experience of this sort has not happened to you yet, it probably will. About the time that you think you have seen everything, one day your lens will slip, and in an instant you will realize that you have not seen anything yet. In the meantime, just ask a friend or two if such a magic moment has ever happened to them. You won't have to ask for details. The event was so remarkable, as soon as they think back on it, They will be bursting to tell you all about it. As they remember, just watch their eyes light up and their voices fill with wonder. For the moment, though, let's return to Jane and John, who were looking at the ball that was painted blue on one side and green on the other. That's what they were doing. Looking. They were not seeing. That was their trouble. For when one views through a truth distortion lens, he looks all around, but really sees very little. In the imaginary example of John and Jane, though, we did not put truth distortion lenses in front of their faces. Instead, we put falseness, the product of any truth distortion lens, which resulted in the same effect. The falseness was that the ball was not what it appeared to be to either Jane or John. Nevertheless, if either had applied the genius formula, he or she would have seen the truth. It was their failure to use the genius formula, including their assumptions that the ball had to be the same color on the opposite side, that did each of them in. They each looked right at the ball, but neither saw the truth. Judges run into this all the time, too. The defendant looked both ways from his vehicle and then proceeded through the intersection. Crunch. He looked, but did not see. On the other hand, you did see. Now, imagine this. You said, quote, "It's half blue and half green," unquote. Mary frowned. John stared. You rotated the ball in your hand, and they both broke out in laughter, as people invariably do when they discover real truth. If they had been a witness in a courtroom, neither would have been lying. Both would have been telling the truth to the best of their abilities to discern it from their particular viewpoints. Events in life are not painted two-tone like the ball, but they are certainly viewed through truth distortion lenses that create extremely false images. After you showed Jane and John the truth, neither of them had the slightest trouble recognizing it as the truth. One always recognizes truth when he actually sees it. As a result, life would be just hunky-dory if it were not for the fact that many other things look like truth too. The old philosopher visualized the road to truth as being paved with gold. But how did he know? For it was a road on which he had never taken the first correct step. The truth is that it is not paved with gold. If it were, someone would have noticed something that obvious about 10 seconds after the dawn of man. In short order, everyone and their aunt 3 times removed would have run a marathon straight down the center lane, waving flamboyant pom-poms and yodeling. No, the road is not paved with gold. It starts about right in the center of your own head and leads beyond the horizon and through the stars, piled high with debris that would put a junkyard dealer to shame. That's why the old philosopher headed off in the wrong direction. He turned right at the sign with the arrow pointing to truth and ran off looking for a yellow brick road that does not exist. Every philosopher from the dawn of history to the 20th century did exactly that. That's why they all eventually died without ever even knowing a workable definition for truth. How do you win a marathon without ever solving a problem that prevents you from taking the first step? Their solution was race off in the opposite direction. Lots of luck. In fact, as you head down the correct road, what looks like trash and carcasses and manure, they're all lies really, litter the roadway from ditch to ditch, as far ahead as you are able to view. As you clamber along, however, you soon notice something astounding. Here and there, and all over the place among the junk, there is gold. Gold dust, gold nuggets, chunks of gold, gold boulders. Furthermore, it seems that every time you blink twice, there is a mountain of gold for the taking, right alongside the road, bigger than the Rock of Gibraltar. Isn't this great? But wait. Some is gold, and some is fool's gold. Curses. Now you may not see every piece of gold that is there, as many small bits are hidden under all the junk, but as you look, you see many. Even through your truth distortion lens, you always recognize the gold when you see it fully and directly. But all the fool's gold looks like gold too, and you cannot tell the difference. You are being fooled, and you know it, but you do not know what to do about it. If one recognizes truth whenever he sees it, but is also fooled into believing that false things are true, and therefore cannot differentiate between them, that person will just spin and spin and spin. Multiply that person by billions, and you have the human race. By the way, don't think it's just our planetary problem either. The genius formula clearly indicates that the inhabitants of other planets in this vast universe are spinning on the same issue. So how does one tell the difference? How does one know whether something is true or false when he sees it? Wouldn't you like to know the answer to that question? The answer to that is that he must know the 3 characteristics of truth, for they comprise the third golden key we are progressing toward. One way to know is for you to tax your mind by thinking it all through using the genius formula. To uncover the truth about anything, there is no method more workable. Another way is for me to tax my own mind by figuring out how to explain in an understandable fashion what the genius formula reveals, and then simply tell you. I'll be a good sport. One of the 3 definitions of the genius formula is as follows: the most basic and effective process to isolate and identify truth. Therefore, it should be an effective technique to reveal the characteristics of truth, and that is the case. The application of the genius formula is an art in every sense, just like painting, sculpting, or musical composition. Applied sloppily, one does not produce anything of particular merit. Of course, using poor techniques, neither would the painter, sculptor, and composer. You were right all along, you know. Some art is not just different, it's bad. The quality is so poor that either it communicates poorly, or what is communicated is not worth the creation, and that really is not painting, sculpting, or musical composition. Rather than being art, it's a feeble attempt at it. The genius formula is similar. When applied in a slipshod manner, it is not the genius formula, but when applied correctly, even in a very limited area, one discovers the equivalent of Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa, or Michelangelo's David, or a piano concerto by Rachmaninoff. In fact, the further one applies it, the greater the aesthetics that come to view. Now we will discover the 3 characteristics of truth. The first characteristic of truth is purity. How could an absence be anything else? If it included just a speck of anything else, it would not be an absence. It would have an impurity. It would not be truth. Truth would have vanished from our view. Truth is purity to the infinite and beyond. For example, the epitome of truth, ultimate truth, is so pure that technically it cannot be defined in words. The instant that one attempts to describe what truth is exactly, just the introduction of words creates an adulteration of the truth, an impurity. Therefore, the resulting definition is not quite the truth. Not quite. Now, did you notice that I did not give you an exact definition of truth earlier? I gave what I called a workable definition, the total absence of falseness. Well, just how close can one get to the exact definition? He can get to a workable definition, and that's close enough, because it works. It's extremely close. A millimicron is 1/1000th of a micrometer, which is 1/100000th of a meter. Move 1 millimicron away from the definition of truth that I gave you, and it does not work. Although truth cannot be defined in words exactly, it can be defined for all practical purposes. Later in life, if you apply the genius formula enough, and thereby walk the road to truth to the end, you will know total truth, and that knowingness is the exact definition of truth. That same knowingness is also the exact definition of life. Just like truth, scientists will never be able to seize it with a pair of forceps and cram it into an Erlenmeyer flask and cork it either. Did you ever notice that the end of a rainbow never seems to come down exactly where you are? Even if you walk toward it, it moves a little further away, and you never quite get there. It's rather like the attempt to define truth exactly. A rainbow is pure in appearance, too. Truth is like a rainbow. The second characteristic of truth is simplicity. How could an absence be anything else? If an absence is not simple, I don't know what is. It's as uncomplicated as anything can get, and ties right in with purity. If something is 100% pure, then it is just the one thing that it is, and nothing else. Isn't that simple? If I continue talking about it, we will soon begin to move in the only direction we can, which is into complication. Besides, it seems simply simple to try to simplify this simplicity. See what I mean? So let me slide off it by directing your attention back to rainbows. Through the years I have descended many volcanoes and walked across the crater floors of at least a couple of dozen, some of which were active but not erupting at the moment. I have my reasons. Well, to tell you the truth, one was erupting, the Kilauea volcano in the Hawaiian Islands, but I was careful about where I walked as I didn't want to get hurt. All I really got was impressed by the heat from scarlet flowing lava and momentarily choked by invisible poisonous gases. Ain't life grand? Well, let's look at rainbows. Did you know there is an occurrence known as the specter of the Brocken? Usually it only happens if you are standing on the rim of the crater of an especially high volcano with a particularly deep crater floor, with the crater ahead of you, with a fine rain falling in front of you, with a cloud drifting beyond the rain before you, and with a bright sun setting or rising behind you. If you have never seen the specter of the Brocken, I can understand. No wonder it's called a specter. The first person who ever saw this thing must have figured that whatever it was, no human being who had ever walked the earth had seen it before. Imagine trying to convince your friends. Anyhow, the sun behind you projects your shadow ahead of you on the cloud before you, high above the crater floor. In addition, the sun's rays around you shine through the raindrops in front of you, producing a full circle rainbow around your shadowed silhouette on the cloud. At least if the angle aligning the sun and your body and the rain and the cloud and the rainbow, well, you get the idea. The crater floor has to be deep enough, though, that it does not bisect the rainbow, thereby permitting it to complete a circle. Furthermore, if the conditions are unusual enough, as if those aren't, with extremely fine mist and especially bright sun, your silhouette can be encircled by both a second and a third rainbow, a phenomenon without a name. Another type of rarely seen rainbow is clearly formed but reflects no pattern of separate colors, much like a moonbow resulting from moonlight. I've seen many of them and can verify that they are completely white. Frankly, however, the subject of rainbows is turning out to be more difficult to explain than the great enigma of truth, so if you will be a sport, I'll move on. The point is that although there are different forms of rainbows, each is a circle, or an arc that would become a circle, a geometric shape of great simplicity. Truth is like a rainbow. The third characteristic of truth is beauty. It is the beauty of the pure simplicity that exists in a total absence of falseness. It only takes one brief, direct glimpse at some actual truth for you to see the beauty every time. Just as when your truth distortion lens slipped, it's the magic of the moment, the wonder that overflows, the glittering stardust falling all around, ecstasy, ethereality. You are seeing the beauty of truth. Now, no person sees more truth than he sees beauty. He may see less truth than the beauty he sees, but never more. As we discussed in the Uncommon Sense series of lectures, some people see beauty here, some there. Many do not see it at all. Now, what is the closest thing to truth, without being truth, that exists in the workaday world? Now we are getting into wavelength and particle flow and the like. It's certainly not the heavy particle flow of war, nor the coarse wavelengths of noise. We have to look way up into the realms of the finest particles and most agreeable wavelengths. There is where we find it. Aesthetics. The greatest music, the finest paintings, the highest quality art. The scent of lily of the valley wafting in the spring breeze. Yet even so, all the aesthetics that we know are but a pitiful reflection of truth, hardly a reflection of truth at all. When I talk about truth, I am not talking about just an absence. I'm talking about a very specific kind of absence, a total absence of falseness. Just as thought and life are things that one cannot grasp, bottle, and cork, types of absences, so too is truth a unique kind of absence, which has beauty as one of its basic characteristics. Now be sure you get this. It is not beautiful just because it is an absence. It is a particular kind of absence that, in a magical way, is beautiful. Because truth is an absence with the characteristic of beauty, you could call truth a particular kind of absence, an absence of beauty. But one might immediately misunderstand that to mean that truth has no beauty at all, which is the opposite of what is true. Do you see what's occurring? Truth cannot be called an absence of beauty, simplicity, and purity, because that sounds as though it has none of those qualities. Remember when I said that it is not possible to exactly define truth in words? At the very hint of one's attempt to move beyond a workable definition to an exact definition, the impurity of words collides head-on with the purity of truth, and the truth vanishes from our view. Then we are looking at the idea of truth having no beauty, simplicity, or purity, which is quite false. What does all that tell us? It indicates that we are only a few millimicrons from what theoretically would be the true definition of truth and its characteristics, which is almost as close as language will allow, and that the genius formula has kept us right on course, straight and true. I have one more thought about this characteristic. If a rainbow is anything, it's a thing of beauty. Truth is like a rainbow. Here is the third golden key and another mega-truth. Truth reflects the characteristics of purity, simplicity, and beauty collectively. Now we already know that we have struck the bullseye, but just for fun, let's double check. Look at the creation of falseness. When we introduce lies, we create an impurity of the truth. When we introduce lies, we complicate truth. When we introduce lies, we cause an ugliness, misunderstanding, confusion, trouble, in place of truth. Are those characteristics of falseness, impurity, complication, and ugliness, exactly opposite to those of truth? Precisely. We are right where we want to be in our analysis. Whenever a person perceives actual truth, then purity, simplicity, and beauty are the very concepts that one sees, and he sees all three of them every time. He sees pure simplicity and pure beauty. Pure, beautiful simplicity. Now we know for sure exactly what truth looks like. Let's see if we can unlock the door to truth. We insert the first golden key into the first lock and speak the truth. Truth is an absence of falseness. We turn the key. Click. We insert the second golden key into the second lock and speak the truth. To discover truth, seek falseness. We turn the key. Click. We insert the third golden key into the third lock and speak the truth. Truth must be pure, beautiful simplicity. We turn the key. Click. But the door does not open. What went wrong? Well, the third key is a double lock. The key must turn not only to the right, but also to the left. Well, it is not surprising that it would work this way, considering the eons through which the door to truth has remained secure. Obviously, there is something else that we must know. In the next lecture, using the Genius formula, we will discover what it is.